with this schlong and change my house.
I don't care how many times I watch this scene. Bobby Bacala putting Tony on the floor is still one of the most satisfying things in the entire show. Because it's Bobby. The guy everybody laughed at. The guy Tony mocked in the street. The guy they treated like he was too soft, too slow, too harmless to ever be a real threat. Tony spends the whole show putting his hands on people who usually cannot hit back. He throws his weight around, scares people, humiliates people, and most of the time the room just takes it because he is Tony Soprano. But Bobby is not small. Bobby has finally reached a state where he has had enough. And once he finally snaps, it feels like watching two bears tear through a cabin. It feels like years of jokes, insults, swallowed anger, and quiet embarrassment finally landing in one punch. But how did Bobby, the softest man in the crew, reach a point where he was willing to hit the boss of the family and risk his life over it? We will come back to this fight, because the punch means more once you understand everything sitting behind it. To get there, we have to look at the years where everybody treated Bobby like the joke. One of the first times he really steps into Tony's world. He already looks like a man carrying someone else's loss. Junior's side has been beaten down. Tony has taken control, and the only person left to carry messages back to the old crew is the one guy nobody in the room seems worried about. Tony sees him and smiles like the joke has already written itself. He comes in carefully. His voice stays low. His eyes drop. Every part of him seems to be trying to get through the conversation without giving Tony anything extra to punish. Tony catches him looking down.
They're gonna find pieces of you in 8 different dumpsters. Don't look at the floor, Bobby. Look at me.
His face comes back up. It is such a small command, but it makes the whole room feel colder. Tony wants eye contact for the humiliation. The message could have been passed along in a few words, but instead he makes him stand there and feel the new order of things directly. Junior gets a piece. Tony takes the rest. The man in the middle has to carry it back. Then, for a second, the fear turns into something more personal.
I don't think you got reason to talk to me this way. I always liked you.
That line is sad because he means it. He is standing in front of a man who is threatening him, talking down to him, turning him into a reminder of Junior's defeat, and the thing he reaches for is almost painfully simple. In his head, that should count for something. Maybe it should soften the room a little. Maybe it should remind Tony that this was never personal from his side. He was Junior's guy, but he was never moving like Richie, never scheming for a throne, never carrying himself like some dangerous rival. He was just stuck between two angry men, doing the errand nobody else wanted. For a second, you can feel how badly he wants a normal human rule to survive inside this conversation. If I liked you, maybe you do not have to talk to me like I am dirt. Tony gives him nothing.
Bullshit. But we'll assume you do now.
The little bit of honesty disappears as soon as it hits the table. The conversation goes back to power. The warning lands. The message is understood. And right before leaving, he tries to walk out with one small line of dignity.
To the victor belongs the spoils.
It comes out awkward, a little too grand for him, like he is reaching for the kind of sentence a sharper man might say before leaving with his head up.
Why don't you get the fuck out of here before I shove your quotations book up your fat fucking ass?
He leaves with the insult hanging behind him. He came in as Junior's messenger and walked out as Tony's punchline. A little later, the same pattern shows up in the street. Tony looks at him and goes straight for his body.
I think it's time for you to start to seriously consider salads. I mean, get off my car before you flip it over, you fat fuck.
And honestly, the first time you watch it, you probably laughed as well, just like I did. I can't sit here and say it wasn't funny. The line is cruel, but it is built like a joke. Bobby is big, awkward, leaning on the car with that confused look on his face. And Tony's delivery is so blunt that the insult lands before Bobby even understands it. The laugh starts feeling different once you stay with Bobby for a moment longer. He moves off the car, quietly, almost automatically. Like his body already knows the safest answer before his pride gets a vote. The errand still has to continue, so he continues it. Junior sent him for an answer, and even after Tony embarrasses him in the street, he still has to stand there and ask the question. Tony gives him the time, then leaves him with one more little jab.
Consider it exercise.
Only after Tony walks away does the anger come out.
Fat fuck. Why don't you look in the mirror sometime, you insensitive cocksucker?
That mutter is the part that makes the scene linger. He heard every word. He knew exactly how ugly it was. He even had the answer ready. He just waited until Tony was far enough away to say it. The joke lands. On a rewatch, the man under the joke starts to matter more. Tony drives away still owning the moment. And Bobby stays there with Junior's question, Tony's insult, and the response he could only say to himself. After the car scene, there is a moment which a certain somebody has already predicted, a lighter moment that almost gives Tony's side of it. Because sometimes, let's be honest, Bobby really does make it hard for people to take him seriously. The whole scene starts with Bobby sitting across from Tony, talking like he has uncovered some huge pattern in the universe.
You know, Quasimodo predicted all this.
Tony looks at him like his brain just stopped for a second, and honestly, you get it. Bobby is sitting there with complete confidence, mixing up Quasimodo and Nostradamus like he is making a serious historical point. The gangster image disappears the second he starts talking. The violence, the suits, the whole world that these men try so hard to make intimidating. All of it gets weaker when Bobby is in the scene because he has this teddy bear quality that cuts through the act. He can be standing inside the mafia and still somehow feel like a guy who got lost on the way to a family barbecue. Tony corrects him, and Bobby keeps going.
Nostradamus. Quasimodo's the hunchback of Notre Dame.
Hunchback of Notre Dame. You also got your quarterback and your halfback of Notre Dame. You're gonna tell me you never pondered that?
It is one of the funniest Bobby moments because he says it with such innocent seriousness. He genuinely thinks there is something there. His face has no irony in it. He is waiting for Tony to admit that, yes, maybe the hunchback thing and the football thing are strangely connected. Tony's reaction is funny because it feels like the reaction any normal person would have. He is trying to eat, and across from him is this grown man in the mob explaining Notre Dame like half of his brain took a wrong turn. So yeah, you understand why Tony laughs at him. The comedy works. But with Bobby, the same thing that makes you laugh also makes him hard to dislike. There is no poison in him here, no slickness, no need to sound dangerous. He is just sitting there thinking out loud in the strangest possible way, completely unaware of how ridiculous he sounds. The scene earns the laugh, then quietly changes how that laugh feels. Bobby's goofy openness makes him easy to dismiss, but it also makes him strangely lovable. And then something that absolutely breaks him happens. His wife Karen dies.
I should have known.
Suddenly, the goofy guy from the diner is sitting in front of the last piece of the life he actually loved.
That's her last CD before she died. I loved her so much.
Karen's ziti sounds almost silly when you say it out loud. A tray of food in a freezer. Something domestic, something ordinary. But for Bobby, it carries her whole presence. Her hands, her kitchen, her care, the version of his house that still had her moving through it. When he starts crying, it gets to you because there is no performance in it.
I thank God for every day we had together.
He breaks down like a man who has been trying to hold himself together for too long, and the food finally reaches the place nobody else could touch. His face folds. His voice disappears into the sobbing. All that size, all that warmth, all that teddy bear quality people laughed at, suddenly turns into grief too big for him to hide. And with Bobby, the grief feels different from what you usually see in this world. Most of these men have wives at home and another life waiting somewhere else. They treat marriage like part of the costume. Something respectable to keep in place while they take whatever they want on the side. Karen was the life Bobby wanted. You feel that in the way her death empties him out. He loved her in this plain, almost innocent way. That makes the crying harder to watch. Because the same softness that made him funny in the Quasimodo scene becomes painful here. Bobby's heart is too visible for the room he lives in. He mourns like a normal man trapped around people who barely know what to do with normal feeling. There was a real tenderness under all of that, and once Karen dies, the show lets you see how much he had been protecting without ever trying to brag about it. For a man in that crew, Bobby was about as clean as someone in the life could be, and somehow, that only made him easier to hurt. After Karen dies, Bobby's life keeps moving before his grief seems ready to move with it. Janice starts filling the empty space in that house. At first, it feels uncomfortable, almost too soon, because Karen is still everywhere around him. But eventually, Janice becomes his wife, and through her, Bobby gets pulled closer to Tony than ever before. The guy who used to stand in front of Tony carrying Junior's messages is now married into Tony's family. He has a daughter with Janice. He has a house by the lake. He has a place where, for a little while, life almost looks gentle again. And then, out on the boat, the conversation drifts toward death, and Bobby starts talking about dying in the kind of low, strange way people talk when the silence around them gets too big.
You probably don't even hear it when it happens, right?
It is a haunting line, especially coming from him and knowing what happens to him and to the man standing next to him later on. Almost seems like he predicted his own fate right here. Bobby says it like a man who has spent his whole life close to violence, close enough to know it is always nearby, while still keeping some distance from the final act of it. Tony hears that distance. He starts circling the one part of Bobby that somehow stayed untouched.
Now come to think of it, you never popped your cherry in that regard, right?
The phrasing is ugly. Tony takes murder and talks about it like a boyhood milestone. Like Bobby is late to something every man in their world is supposed to experience, similar to how virginity is treated among teenage boys today. The fact that Bobby has never killed anyone becomes almost embarrassing in Tony's mouth. Bobby answers with a quiet honesty.
I've done other shit, but no.
That little answer keeps him human. He has done bad things. He has been part of the life for years. His hands are far from clean. But there is still one line he has managed to stay behind, and he says it almost carefully, like he knows Tony will hear softness in it. Then Tony brings up Bobby's father.
Yeah, your old man was the fucking Terminator.
Tony says it with a kind of admiration. In his head, that kind of violence is legacy, reputation, proof. But Bobby's memory of his father carries something quieter.
My pop never wanted it for me.
The line cuts through the whole scene. Bobby's father was a killer, feared enough for Tony to talk about him like some machine built for death. And even that man wanted something else for his son. He saw the life clearly enough to keep Bobby away from the worst part of it for as long as he could. Maybe that was the last bit of protection he knew how to give him. And Bobby held on to it. Through Junior, through Tony, through the errands and jokes and insults, through years of being treated like the soft one, he still had one piece of himself that had never fully crossed over. Tony notices it. Bobby has a wife, a child, a home by the water, and somehow this untouched part of him too. For Tony, a man living inside the same world should not get to stay that clean. So the lake looks peaceful, but the conversation leaves something floating there. Tony has found the piece of Bobby that can still be taken. Then the night keeps drinking. The lake house still looks like a family night. A board game on the table, drinks going around, Carmela and Janice laughing, Bobby sitting in the middle of the life he built after Karen. Tony wins a small moment in the game and starts repeating himself with that drunk, pleased rhythm.
How about that? How about that?
Bobby gives him a look there. Quick, quiet, easy to miss. He knows this version of Tony. The smile gets bigger, the voice gets louder, and everyone around him starts reading the air. Then Janice gets a laugh at his expense. She brings up an old childhood story that makes Tony look ridiculous in front of the table, and you can see his face change. The smile tightens, the fun leaves his eyes. Tony can embarrass everyone around him, but the second the room laughs at him, he reaches for something sharper.
You blue guys under it.
Bobby looks at him again. This time there is more heat in it. Tony has taken an old piece of Janice's past and dragged it into Bobby's home, right in front of her husband. Then the game gives Tony another opening. Janice pulls a card saying she won second prize in a beauty contest, and Tony turns it into a disgusting insult about her body. The joke means Janice is so unattractive to him that even a shaved dog's backside would have beaten her for first place.
A German Shepherd shaved asshole won first prize.
Oh,
Bobby finally answers.
what about my wife?
The line hits because it is simple. This is his house. This is his table. This is the woman he married. Tony is being reminded of a boundary he should have understood without being told. Bobby pushes the line clearer.
This is my home. No more talking like that.
For years, Tony could embarrass him in places Tony controlled. The back room, the street, the car, all those little moments where Bobby swallowed the insult and kept doing the job. The lake house is the first place where Bobby can draw a line and actually mean it.
The Sopranos. You go too far.
Tony gives him an apology.
I'm sorry. I crossed the line. I apologize.
The words are all there, but the feeling behind them is dead. He says the right thing almost too cleanly, like he wants credit for backing off. His pride is still sitting at the table, and Bobby can feel it. Then Tony proves the apology meant nothing. He already heard Bobby say that was his wife. He already heard Bobby say this was his home. He already admitted he crossed the line. Then he walks right back over it. And my estimation of Bobby Bacala as a man just skyrockets here. The hit feels like a correction. Tony spent years looking at Bobby like a joke, and the joke just hit him in the face. All that size Tony mocked suddenly becomes real. The body he made fun of beside the car becomes the body driving him backward through the room. Then Bobby sets himself. That little football stance is perfect. He plants his feet like a defender waiting for contact, and suddenly the old wound about Tony never having the makings of a varsity athlete is sitting in the room without anyone saying it. Tony rushes forward drunk and angry, while Bobby braces for him like he already knows the collision belongs to him. Out of all the people who challenge Tony, the one who truly beats him with his own hands is Bobby. The soft one, the goofy one. The man everybody thought they could turn into a punchline. Tony ends up on the floor, bloodied and stunned. For one night, Bobby takes his respect back in the place Tony tried to take it from him, his own house, in front of his wife, from Tony Soprano. The victory feels good because it should. Tony is still Tony. He can lose on the floor and still find a way to make Bobby pay for winning. Later that night, everyone is asleep except Tony. The fight is over. The room is quiet, but he is still awake, bruised, sitting with the loss like it keeps replaying in his head. So he goes to Bobby's room. The boss of the family, standing in the dark, unable to sleep because Bobby Bacala beat him.
You beat me fair and square.
For a second, it sounds like respect. Bobby won. No excuse, no rug, no alcohol, no way to make it smaller. But Tony being awake gives him away. If the loss was really settled, he would have let the house sleep. Instead, he needs to say it out loud, like putting the truth into words might make it easier to control. Bobby gets one night with the win. The problem is that Tony's world never lets a man like Bobby keep that kind of win for free. By the next day, Tony has already buried the fight under business. A job gets brought to the table, a name, a favor, the usual quiet language men use when they want murder to sound like work. Tony knows where to place it. He heard Bobby on the boat. After all those years in the life, Bobby had still never killed anyone. His father never wanted it for him. Somehow, through the errands, the jokes, the insults, and all the ugliness around him, Bobby had stayed behind that line. Now Tony puts the line in front of him.
You'll take care of this, right?
Bobby understands it before the conversation has to get dramatic. The fight gave him one night of respect. This job becomes the price. The hit feels wrong from the moment he walks in. Bobby does not move like a natural killer. There's no coolness to it, no rhythm, no comfort in the violence. He looks like a man forcing himself through a door his whole body wants to turn away from. The gun goes off and the bullet keeps going. It passes through the man, breaks into the dryer behind him, and rattles around inside the machine like loose change left in a pair of jeans. That sound makes the murder stay in the room. In a laundromat, of all places, a place built around washing things clean. The show turns Bobby's first murder into a tiny domestic sound, metal trapped in a machine, still spinning after the life has already left the body. Then his shirt tears near the left side of his chest. For Bobby, that image feels cruelly perfect. He was the man with the visible heart in a family full of people trying to hide theirs. He loved Karen without needing a second life on the side. He loved his kids with a softness the others would have mocked if they knew how to name it. And now the tear opens right where the heart sits. Then he comes back to his daughter. The house is still waiting for him. His family is still there. The warm part of his life has no idea what he had to leave behind to walk back through that door. Bobby holds his child, and the image hurts because nothing about her has changed, only him. Earlier on the boat, he wondered if you even hear death when it comes. Now he knows the sound. A gunshot, a dryer rattling, a shirt tearing near the heart. Some victories give a man back his pride for one night. In Tony's world, the bill always comes after. Bobby beat Tony with his hands. Tony made sure he carried the cost in his soul.